Hey guys, it's the Melblade 5. And after people seemed to really like the Azura video, it gave me the encouragement to decide on doing at least one more video on an underrated Fire Emblem character. And I thought, who better to do next than the other deuteragonist who doesn't get enough credit? By going back a game to Awakening. The entry that needs no introduction with its reputation of having saved the series, and despite some people growing more critical of it over the years, I still love a decade later. Maybe I have somewhat of a soft spot for it since it was my first Fire Emblem game, but there is genuineness to my feelings as what I think Awakening does well, it does really well. Which includes its trio of main characters consisting of Chrom, Lucina, and the subject of today's video, Robin. I've not seen anyone criticize Robin per se, but I have seen many people disregard them, as a lot of the reactions to Awakening's main cast can be summed up with, "Yeah! Chrom and Lucina!" Oh, and I guess Robin too. And don't get me wrong, I love Chrom and Lucina as much as the next guy, but I also love Robin, and I feel they've been left unappreciated for so long. In part due to most others over time coming to view them as just the Avatar character, which I think is a gross oversimplification of who Robin is. I have always believed that Robin is a great character who deserves their place alongside the game's other main stars, rather than solely being in their shadows as they seem to be in everyone else's minds. This is due to how fleshed out their character really is, from both their personality and how they play out their role as the deuteragonist across Awakening's storyline. The extent of which I think is unfairly gone unnoticed when Robin and Awakening in general has been discussed by others, leading to the former's status of being largely overlooked. So with my newfound encouragement and these thoughts having remained dormant in my mind ever since I first finished Awakening that I just struggled to put into words until now, I wanted to place those overlooked details front and center to explain why I think Robin is so underrated, in an attempt to tip the scales in their favor so they can earn some much needed appreciation for who they are, and not just as an avatar. Probably the best place to begin is right when Robin's journey begins, where after receiving a glimpse of the future, they wake up in a field with amnesia and meet Chrom and Lissa. Chrom decides to help Robin, and after seeing their natural talent for strategy, he recruits them into the Shepherds as their tactician. It was due to Chrom helping them that day that developed one of the most well-known aspects of Robin's character, being how unwaveringly loyal they are to Chrom. The importance of which I feel gets a bit downplayed by the rest of the fanbase. When looking at this moment directly from Robin's perspective, they wake up with no idea who they are, where they came from, what they were doing or should be doing now, and what their purpose is. But Chrom chooses to help them in their time of need in spite of any doubts, like Frederick being understandably suspicious of Robin at first, and gives them a place to belong with the Shepherds. Chrom and the others gave Robin's life a purpose that they had lost from their amnesia, so it's no surprise that Robin would be eternally grateful in return. This is something that the spin-offs address more openly, which is most apparent with the Awakening Valentine's alts and heroes that have both Robins talk about just how much of a profound effect Chrom's help that day has had on their life. And adding on to this is something that sadly doesn't come up as much in Awakening itself as I think it should have. Being how, more so during the first half of the game, Robin suffers from somewhat of an identity crisis, where they are left questioning who exactly they were before they lost their memory, and if who they are now contradicts it, leaving them struggling to figure out their own personal wants. These questions then turn into a fear of their past after Valadar goes all Darth Vader on them. But Chrom is able to quickly bring them round and help them realize they are who they are regardless of their past, which prompts them to start living more in the now from then on. As cheesy as this is to say out loud, I always loved the friendship between Chrom and Robin, and I'd say it was probably one of the main factors that led to me becoming so invested in the series from the character and support side. Seeing as the two grow and learn from one another as their bond deepens throughout the game, and how they continually have each other's backs to return the favor by being there to pull the other out of the depths of despair so they can keep moving forward. Just as Robin did for Chrom after Emmeren's death. Or supposed death. They share similar foundations to the bond between Ike and Soren, whilst the exact ways in which each character develops from it differs. In Robin's case, they are inspired by Chrom's actions to want to help others in the same way he helped them, with one of the most apparent examples of this being in male Robin's A-rank support with Aversa, which has him console her over her own feelings of not belonging anywhere and suggesting how a place amongst the shepherds can be an opportunity for her to gain a second chance, with some dialogue almost mirroring what Chrom said to him after learning of his heritage. Furthermore, they often help the rest of the shepherds across their supports, either by having Robin assist them whenever they can, or trying to bring out the best in their abilities, be it for battle or otherwise, which acts as more ways for Robin to be able to return the favor to the shepherds for welcoming them in and further adding onto the sense of belonging they got from joining their ranks. Thus taking me on to the rest of Robin's characterization that mainly comes about through the rest of their supports, and starting with the other well-known trait of their sheer intelligence and tactical mind, a quality that multiple characters sing their praises on at numerous points in the game, which one would instinctively think is just there to stroke the player's ego, which it probably is to an extent, but it also builds on Robin's character through their own behavior on this subject. Robin is shown to be quite prideful of their tactical ability, to the point that they are really hard on themselves whenever one of their strategies fails, even when it's something far less serious like repeatedly losing to Virion at a chess-like game in their supports, where they briefly feel dispirited over their skills as a result. And Robin isn't an egotistical person or anything. They are extremely modest when it comes to everything else, which does somewhat contradict the whole stroking the player's ego idea. This is just my interpretation, but I see Robin's pride over their tactics to be a result of the fact that it's what they bring to the group. It's why they were recruited into the Shepherds in the first place, and what Chrom highly values of them in battle. But most importantly, it's how they are able to keep the others from dying. So when something happens that begins to make them doubt their strategic ability, they take it so hard because it makes them think, I'm not good enough to be their tactician, and what purpose do I serve the others now then? It's another case of showing how important Robin's place in the Shepherds is to them, the whys behind it, and how they don't want to lose their position or their allies because of how much they mean to them. However, Robin's overly strategic mindset is also shown to be a bit of an odd quirk in every other scenario, as they're shown to almost obsessively think about the strategic value something completely unrelated to combat might bring to the army on occasion. They are also a huge bookworm, with reading being their main hobby, which also contributes them coming off as pretty nerdy. But I mean that in an endearing way, because as a result of them spending most of their me time either reading or trying to come up with new strategies, Robin doesn't exactly have the most outgoing personality in the world. And it shows from how they can initially struggle understanding or fitting in with some of the more colorful characters in the game, be it the hot-headed, the eccentric, or just the out-there ones. Seeing Robin's level-headed and rational temperament clash against that of the far goofier personalities leads to a lot of comedic moments from how they react to their shenanigans, sometimes responding by being very sassy. And there are other times where their default mindset makes them unable to read the room, like in a few of the S supports. In summary, I love how much of a dork Robin is, and it pairs up well with how Chrom can also be pretty dorky at times. This dorkiness is a little bit more prevalent with male Robin, which is partly why I do have a slight preference for him, but female Robin still shows this in several of her unique supports. That also applies to how Robin is more of a brains over brawn type figure, as they aren't so great at manual tasks, like physical training with Frederick or their attempt at cooking with Donald. Lastly, a strange semi-recurring quirk with Robin I've noticed is that they seem to like really weird food. The infamous bear meat, some kind of laxative seaweed, and their favorite of liver and eel pie, just to give them some little extra peculiarities. I greatly appreciate how Robin was given a fully fleshed out character, complete with their own established strengths, flaws, quirks, and personal goals. It feels like they were written in the same manner as any other character and just happened to be given the role of the avatar. Unlike how most of the other avatars feel more like their characters were written as avatars first, by having a basic framework of a character established for the player to then insert themselves into, and or coming off as a bit too perfect, which I think makes them less interesting by comparison. whereas Robin feels more defined as a person in the game's world, to the point that their later game appearances where they are not an avatar has them come off as no different to how they were before. And the last and biggest aspect of Robin I wanted to discuss, which is something I've not seen anyone else mention, is how they are one of the biggest demonstrators of Awakening's main theme of changing fate. This all revolves around the revelation that Robin is actually the vessel for Grima, and that they were conceived merely to be a tool to resurrect him. Robin's fate, as is what happened in the original timeline, is to kill Chrom while under Grima's influence, then use their body to resurrect Grima and have him fully possess them, thus completely losing their humanity. From there, Grima destroys the world and kills millions, including all the other shepherds, thus wiping out everything that Robin had ever cared about and gave their life meaning, technically by their own hands, but against their will. This is built upon in the Future Past DLC, where in its final chapter, while Grima is in a weakened state, Robin is able to barely act through his possession, and particularly in the bad ending, they express the immense guilt they feel over all the death and destruction that Grima has caused using their body and how they were unable to stop him, with the killing of both of them being the only way Robin can find peace. But soon, Grima takes back control and their consciousness is lost once again. In other words, Robin's fate is to cease to exist and be replaced with Grima. Their own life never mattered to the whims of fate. It was merely a stepping stone to bring about Grima's resurrection. Much like Fomortis possessing Leon in Sacred Stones, Robin's destiny is one full of tragedy. Especially when this destiny was thrusted on them from the moment they were born with no say in the matter. While Robin's life prior to meeting Chrom has never been fully revealed, based on what Valadar says about their mother fleeing with them, I think it's safe to assume that they were living in some form of hiding from Valadar and the rest of the Grimleal before they got amnesia, which combined with the fearing of their past post-amnesia, from a thematic standpoint, has Robin trying to run away from their fate. But try as they might, they can't truly escape it. It was even Grima's actions that resulted in Robin developing amnesia in the first place. Grima has influenced almost every aspect of Robin's life, with the two of them being forcefully connected to each other. But after gaining the necessary courage from fighting with and for their friends, this running away then turns into challenging their fate head-on once the future Grima-possessed Robin finally steps up to the plate and uses themselves to resurrect Grima in the present, forcing them to directly face what they are destined to become. Which all culminates in the ending where Robin deals the finishing blow on Grima to kill him once and for all, at the cost of their life. This sacrifice not only changed the fate of the world, but changed Robin's own fate too, as their actions went beyond just preventing Grima's future from ever happening and ensuring the others and their descendants' survival. It also symbolizes Robin's decision that if they have to die, they will not die as Grima or anyone else's puppet, but simply die as Robin, who they always wanted to be, and came to be known as by those important to them. This sort of concept is reinforced in Robin's support with Corin and Warriors, in which they say,
I want to be the architect of my own fate.
And while it is revealed that Robin survived due to the power of friendship basically, it doesn't undermine the reasoning behind their sacrifice. And while this is also cheesy to say, it ended up becoming very poetic that Robin's reason for living became their literal reason for living. And one of the differences between this scene and the first meeting is that the Mark of Grima is no longer on Robin's hand, symbolizing how they are now free from any and all connections to Grima and can now live out the rest of their life as Robin. You probably saw this coming, but I think Robin is the best Avatar character in the series thus far, for having both a fully fleshed out character and a strong story arc that services the game's themes, which I think none of the others have ever quite reached that same level in both categories. Over time, I viewed all the avatars more for who they are as characters rather than seeing them as just avatars. But Robin was definitely the one I started to do that with first. And this was after I began to hold them in the same regard as Chrom and Lucina. But due to a combination of Chrom and Lucina's huge popularity and the general reception the avatars get, Robin got more overshadowed by them instead. Their situation with the fanbase reminds me of what initially happened with Micaiah. Since she had to share the spotlight with Ike, who was way more popular, she ended up getting ignored by fans until a few years ago when she started to get the recognition I felt she deserved. Only with Robin, I've never felt that they've truly gotten their overdue recognition, as any recognition I do see them get is more for their position as one of the main characters, rather than their actual character and character arc, which are the reasons why I love Robin. Even intelligent systems seem to have only consistently remembered Robin exists outside of Grima in recent months. But if there's anything I've learned from them and the rest of Awakening's cast, it's that whatever your current destiny may be, if you have the courage to challenge it, you can potentially change it for the better. And hopefully, their fate can be changed again to earn a more improved public opinion.